Mass Effect 2 is a lie. On paper, it's a linear corridor shooter, but in practice, it's an anthology series masquerading as a video game. My argument is simple. ME2 stays endlessly engaging because every major mission switches genre, and all that variety secretly trains you for the suicide mission. Its ability to radically alter its genre on a mission-by-mission basis is the unspoken genius of BioWare's magnum opus. The anthology of distinct tonal and mechanical experiences allow each mission to serve as its own miniature set piece within its sci-fi framework, resulting in a game that never allows the repetitive quest structure to calcify, because the moment you think you understand what kind of game this is, it pivots to an entirely new genre. From the earliest concept stages of Mass Effect 2's design, every decision was traced back to the suicide mission, which acted as the game's North Star, which creates my favorite part of this entire trilogy, how the finale-focused design meant that the inherent drama of the final assault comes from the preparation towards the climax. Films like The Dirty Dozen, Ocean's 11, and even Avengers Endgame all understand that to get the audience invested in their heist narratives, they need to watch the team assemble, going in-depth on each member's unique skill set and making them wonder whether they'll survive. BioWare brilliantly reverse-engineered this framework into game design by making you experience each crew member's specialty through missions designed around their archetype, which is why every loyalty mission is such a radical departure from the core narrative. For example, Samara's mission turns the game into a psychological thriller tinged with a detective narrative, removing the combat mechanics in favor of social manipulation and deductive reasoning as you track down a serial killer. As the game transitions into an experience more in line with Disco Elysium, as your primary weapon becomes dialogue choices in an attempt to seduce a centuries-old murderer. Once you've located her, the tone shifts to an intense conversation puzzle where one wrong answer means failure. This puzzle requires you to weaponize the clues you gathered during the detective phase to prove you're sophisticated enough to become Morinth's next conquest. And once you're in the apartment, the tone shifts again to psychological horror, as you're trapped with the intimate terror of being alone with something that wants to break your mind through sheer pleasure. And then the final confrontation, where Samara bursts in, resolves as a Greek tragedy, with her quiet devastation at losing her most talented child. The game is able to earn that emotional payoff because it makes you experience Morinth's seductive charisma firsthand. And so without firing a shot, this single mission has delivered more tension and variety than a dozen corridor shooters, and it did so by completely abandoning its primary gameplay. Kasumi's loyalty mission emphasizes this design choice by turning ME2 into Ocean's 11. The first half is a social stealth game where it's deliberately impossible to use combat as an option. This mission's brilliance is its ability to withhold combat as a form of escalating the tension. You walk past all this extravagant architecture and elegant decor, making our trigger fingers itch, and so the game forces restraint on us until we want the inevitable moment when the heist goes wrong and our magpie brains say shiny things go boom. And the catharsis is overwhelmingly delivered on by having us engage in a shootout in a gallery worth more than all of Omega put together, and culminating in a helicopter boss fight. What I especially love about this is how the genre shift fits the archetype of its central character. Kasumi's a thief, so her mission is a heist. And the same principle is applied across the roster, and not just for loyalty missions, but recruitment missions as well. Jack's recruitment mission is a pure balls-to-the-wall action flick, complete with chaos, convicts, and the collapse of corruption. This mission especially focuses on environmental destruction to match Jack's rage at the ship that's imprisoned her. Compare this with Thane's recruitment on Ilium, which combines noir with urban thriller as you navigate through the cyberpunk skyline while trying to stay ahead of this apex predator. It's able to emulate the conventions of noir, such as the morally ambiguous target and the assassin's reveal of his code of honor, all while layering in sci-fi spectacle and shootouts. Every single mission follows that template, taking the character's archetype, applying it to a genre, and then designing a mission set in that genre. Like how Grunt's rite of passage becomes gladiatorial combat. As every enemy charges straight at you, the tactical cover shooting is thrown by the wayside in favor of an all-out brawl. Morden's mission displays both biological and ethical horror as you gun down Krogan who just want to save their species, as you come to the creeping realization that your favorite quirky scientist truly did commit one of the greatest crimes in galactic history. Which is why Morden is probably my favorite character BioWare has ever written, because on the one hand, he's a funny guy who sings Gilbert and Sullivan, and he's also directly responsible for genocide, making him one of the most conflicting characters the gaming medium has to offer. The final choice of what to do with Malin's research is a genuine trolley problem, and you have no way of knowing just how impactful that choice will be in the finale. Though the best example of this has to be Garrus's recruitment, as it showcases how these genre shifts can utilize narrative momentum even in straightforward action missions. As what starts as a simple extraction mission has an unexpectedly massive narrative payoff when your best friend is under the helm, which creates an immediate narrative weight as his health bar appears and the mercenaries begin their assault, as Mass Effect has proven it's willing to kill your companions. Now, you have no way of knowing that Garrus dying results in a game over instead of a permanent death, which would have saved me a few reloads, but all's well that ends well. Because the catharsis of getting to mow down foes with what's easily the first game's standout character in what you expected to be just another recruitment mission is heightened because you got to play Infiltrator first. And so the genre switch makes both halves feel distinct enough as experiences, yet they're expertly welded together by Garrus's reveal. And while the examples I could list are endless, all this genre switching would be meaningless if it wasn't building towards something. And so the greatest finale in gaming takes center stage, the climax of the narrative and the unification of every gameplay mode you've experienced over the last 30 hours. Serving as a test of your awareness over these last 24 missions and what the genre language was teaching you. Tali, Legion, and Kasumi's missions all involve major sections bereft of combat and a technological focus, so you internalize them as tech specialists. The overwhelming power of Jack and Samara's biotic abilities should put them at the forefront of your mind when choosing a shield bearer, while Garrus and Jacob all display level-headed judgment on their missions despite high personal stakes, so this makes them an excellent choice for command roles. And while that will seem obvious to you, viewer, who rigorously completed every mission before heading through the relay, you wouldn't be privy to any of these character traits had you decided to forego earning your squad's loyalty. And the devastating impact of your choices makes the effort of proving yourself to the crew feel essential even on a 5th replay, because it validates your experiences each and every time. Without completing these missions, Shepard is essentially picking names out of a hat. I mean, sure, you could find a way to do only the bare essential loyalty missions in order to get through the base unscathed, but at that point, why are you even playing video games? And so, giving your Shepard the accumulated understanding of their squad feels like the only true way to play Mass Effect 2. As such, the suicide mission becomes the ultimate test of both combat mechanics and genre literacy as you recall the capabilities of each crew member, creating a greatest hits compilation of the gameplay styles. For example, the vent sequence recalls the stealth and problem-solving of Kasumi and Legion's quests. The biotic barrier evokes the raw destructive power of Jack's rampage through both her former cages, as well as Samara's outward brutality. And the fireteam assignments test your memory of those who've got command experience, like Miranda and Jacob. Hell, even who you don't choose and leave behind as defense is accounted for, as the subjects of the more combat-focused missions, Grunt and Zaid, excel at holding the line, where the quests with greater moral weight, such as Tali and Morden's, are at higher risk due to their lack of combat experience, at least if we're being strictly canonical. The best part is how none of this is told to you. The game trusts you to have internalized each member's strengths and weaknesses and shows no mercy to the unattentive, resulting in a symphonic ludo-narrative harmony between story, gameplay, and climax. The narrative tells you to assemble a group of remarkable people. The mechanics of the individual quests show you where their skills lie, and the finale demands you prove your understanding of this journey, and it will not tolerate failure. And so BioWare stumbled onto a design that rectified one of RPG's most consistent failures, mission monotony. Traditional quest design assumes all you need to change is the flavor of ice cream rather than the venue. For example, if you have 30 different quests that say kill 10x, which can be filled in with any number of creatures, a developer might see that as 30 distinct quests, whereas to a player it's just one quest 30 times. The skills that are being tested remain identical, causing open-world fatigue, where more content can amazingly feel like punishment rather than reward. Now, to be clear, I actually like checklist design, and it can be extremely cathartic and relaxing, but only when it's done at the scale of a Marvel Spider-Man or Ghost of Tsushima. Mass Effect 2 maintains its core framework as a third-person shooter RPG, but it throws 24 genuinely different set pieces at you, each with a different genre, tone, and mechanic, and ends up creating more engagement than you could find in 500 hours of Starfield and AC Valhalla. The two biotics, Samara and Jack, both teach the same lesson in their quests, but they test entirely separate skills, either social persuasion for Samara or destructive capabilities for Jack. Mass Effect 2 will never ask the same thing of you twice, because every major mission is playing by new rules. Yet this design trend failed to catch on, as RPG games focus more on quantity than variety. Yet I ask you publishers, if the key metric you want is engagement, then doesn't constantly surprising the player keep them hooked on the adventure? Though I know they'll throw budget numbers back in my face, as the scope of creating these unique missions would be difficult to replicate. But the philosophy can still scale to budget constraints. Even 3 basic genres of combat, stealth, and platforming creates the perception of variety far more than 20 identical combat quests, which can then be validated by their suicide mission stand-in, demonstrating that what we assumed was variety was actually preparation, with each shift of genre building a different cognitive skill until the climax demands the synthesis of your learning, instilling you with the confidence and feeling like you were properly and clearly tested. And that, my humble viewer, is how you fix Bethesda and Ubisoft open worlds. Now, I conspicuously didn't mention BioWare despite their fall from grace, and I honestly can't hold contempt for a team I feel so bad for. It's worth reading up on Veilguard's development in case you were disappointed with it, as when I played the game knowing how EA had interfered, I was stunned they managed to make something functional, let alone fun. And while we can't be sure of Mass Effect's future, the BioWare of today can ensure its success by looking to the past. Mass Effect 2 remains one of RPG's strongest pillars 16 years on, because no major studio has fully embraced the lessons it's taught. The closest comparison I can think of is honestly a 3D Mario like Odyssey, which constantly moves on to new art styles and mechanics. And in the RPG space, there's obviously Nier Automata, but that game radically switches the genre of its gameplay, whereas Mass Effect 2 always retains its third-person combat, but swaps out its tone while merely iterating on its mechanics. Perhaps on paper that's less impressive, but to me, that restriction makes the radically different styles more impressive, because it proves that even the same core gameplay loop can still feel fresh as long as you shift the context of it, resulting in a richer experience. And unlike Automata, it's not just variety for variety's sake, as its finale only works because you've spent 30 hours learning genre literacy, until you're fluent in heist conventions, horror atmosphere, and gladiatorial rituals, so when you assign roles, you demonstrate the lessons you've learned during your time in the Milky Way. With the mechanical stakes as high as they can possibly be, that tension also feels real because you got to experience each character's talents as opposed to reading about them in a codex. I personally believe this should have been the future of quest design, a genre-shifting engagement strategy which proves that anthology is the antidote to tedium. And so now the industry needs to be brave enough to go where only one game has gone before. Thank you so much for watching. If you're wondering why Tali's loyalty mission, easily the game's most distinct, wasn't included, it's because I already discussed it here, and it was actually the impetus for this current video.